So what are the most important relationship skills to look for in a potential partner and to develop in yourself to be a great partner? That's what I want to share with you today. So hi, my name is Magda Kay, and especially if you're new to this channel, welcome. So I am an intimacy expert, a tantra teacher, and a relationships coach. And in this channel, I talk about everything you need to create those deeply fulfilling relationships with yourself, with other people, and with life itself. And today I want to talk to you about 7 relationship skills that are absolutely necessary to have a great relationship. So look, if you want a great dish, even if you have an amazing recipe, you still need great ingredients. If anything is off, then even the best recipe will not work. In an intimate relationship, ingredients is you and your partner. So those 7 skills that I'm going to share with you today is basically sort of like a quality check to make sure that the person you feel attracted to is really capable of creating the great relationship with you. And like I said, it's also for you to make sure that you are doing your part, because like I said, you are also the ingredient. So what are those 7 skills? The first one is you have to know your needs. Look, here's the thing. Everything, and I really mean everything we do in life, we do it because it meets our needs. Now, in many cases, we're not truly aware of which needs we're actually meeting. Still, we're meeting our needs. So you really want to be aware of what your needs are. That means especially those very deep needs that you're kind of starving for, like the needs that have not been met for a really long time. You gotta be aware what truly motivates your behavior, what actually motivates you to want to be in a relationship, and what are your relationship needs. That means knowing your trauma, because trauma basically means that there are certain needs that you had as a child that were not met, and so now you're taking them back into your adult life, and they hugely, massively impact how you show up in a relationship. So what happens in many cases in relationships is that we start arguing over something because we don't actually understand what our needs are. So we're clashing over a superficial thing because we don't go deep enough. Now, let me give you an example. Let's say we have a woman who loves to cook, and for her, cooking meets a lot of her deep needs. This can be the need for growth, for learning new things, moving forward, progress. This can also meet her need for love and connection, because this is maybe how she connects with other people, through her cooking. This may also be the need for validation or the need for contribution, right? So through cooking, she gets to meet a lot of her needs. Now imagine she's dating someone who really doesn't care about a home-cooked meal. And so her partner may be perfectly fine eating, just grabbing some food on the way back from the office. So if that's the case, she will feel rejected. She may feel unloved, she may feel unseen, she may feel like she doesn't contribute to the relationship, she may feel like she's not growing. So can you see how this opens the possibility for so many conflicts and unmet needs just because they're not aware of what cooking means for her? So this is why understanding our needs is so absolutely crucial for intimate relationships, so that we know why we do the things we do, so that we can communicate it, we can ask our partner to meet those important needs and actually feel met and satisfied. Now, the thing about finding our needs is that it's a process and it's not always easy, because we're talking about going really deep, not the surface level. The surface level, it's really our ego trying to convince us of something, but the true need is deep. And so this is something I do with my private coaching clients. And if you would like to dive into this together, check the description under this video and you're going to find the link for a free consultation. If you want to speak to me more and see how together we can help you achieve your goals in your intimate life and identify those deep needs so you're more aware of your behavior, then just fill up the application, let's talk more, and let's create some magic. But now let me go to skill number 2. And this is no surprise for you, I'm pretty sure. It's communication. But I want to go a bit deeper with you. What does it mean to communicate? Like, what is the skill of conscious communication? Because there's few kind of sub points into this. So the first thing about communication is that it's the ability to put ourselves in our partner's shoes. It's to be able to see their perspective. There will be multiple times when your partner does something that to you it may seem unloving or rude, and you cannot believe that they would do this just because you wouldn't do it. And in the moment when we feel triggered, when we may feel rejected or unloved, it's really not easy to see your partner's perspective. And this is where the skill of communication comes in. Now, the second aspect of communication is the ability to discuss certain topics which may seem a bit difficult or taboo. So this means, first of all, actually speaking about your needs in the relationship. Like, what is it that you want? What is it that you need? And that's not all that easy because it's vulnerable to do so. And also because, sometimes we don't want to come across as too needy. We don't want to admit that we really want something. So we can kind of play things cool, even though we're not cool about something, or we can kind of minimize some of our needs, not to seem very needy and desperate. So a conscious communication, the skill to communicate, means speaking it all. Now, that also means communicating your boundaries, and that also means speaking about taboo topics such as sex. And we're gonna talk about specifically boundaries and sexual openness because these are two skills to look for. But when we speak about communication, it's super important that you have the ability to talk about these topics, but also receive them from your partner. Now, another aspect of communication is the ability not to take everything personally, okay? And again, this kind of comes down to being able to see your partner's different perspective. So often, they can snap at us and say something that's hurtful, and that's not necessarily what they meant. So if we always make it about ourselves, and if I always come from the place of my own wounds, then it's going to be very difficult to have conscious communication. And the last thing, and this is really the underlying element of conscious communication, is our ability to be vulnerable. Because as long as we engage our self-defense mechanism, which we all have, and it's very active in all of us, we're not able to really talk openly about things. So you gotta be vulnerable to really be able to discuss all of these aspects, to see your partner's different perspective, and actually make sure that communication brings you closer together instead of creating more misunderstandings. Now, that takes me to skill number 3, and it's necessary to be a good communicator. And that's the ability to regulate our nervous system. So, what do I mean by this? See, anytime we get triggered, anytime, your partner does something that makes you feel unloved, or maybe makes you feel scared that you're going to be rejected or abandoned, what happens is that the nervous system gets activated. Like a trauma in your body gets activated, and you step into fight or flight mode. Fight or flight mode is the state where we're not able really to consciously choose how we're going to behave. So we lose the ability to respond, and instead we react. We're all triggered, we're all tense, we're ready to fight or to run away. And when we are in this state, it's practically impossible to see your partner's perspective. It's impossible to be vulnerable and to discuss anything in an open way. Now, most of us are absolutely not aware even when our nervous system gets triggered. So first, it takes self-awareness and be able to recognize that, whoa, I'm not actually fully myself. Whatever just happened, whatever you said or you did, it triggered a deep pain in my body. So I first need to take some time for myself to regulate my nervous system, and then I can come back and talk to you. And so there's different practices that allow us to recognize if we are in a fight or flight mode, because again, it's not always so obvious. It's very often this kind of underlying state of anxiety that people are in. And secondly, you have to understand where your nervous system is, whether you're being numb and freezing, if you're disassociating, or if you're overly anxious or getting angry and ready to fight someone. So based where you are, you're going to use a different tool to calm your nervous system down. And so again, this is something we do with my clients in my one-on-one coaching, because we have enough time to really go deep to understand what triggers your nervous system, and then design the specific strategy for your triggers, for your wounds and your fears that will help you come back to the balanced state. But again, this is such an important thing for people to be able to do when they're in a relationship, because we will be triggering each other. There's no questions about that. But can we actually move through it without causing more harm? So once again, if you feel like you need some assistance learning to manage your nervous system, check the link below this video, apply for the free consultation, and let's talk more how we can work together. Number 4, and this is to be a team player. Now, this is a very important skill to have, because there will be moments, like I just discussed, where it may be way too tempting to think of your partner as your enemy. It's like, if it wasn't for them, I would be all happy, I would have my freedom, I could do anything I want, but my partner is to blame for my unhappiness. And as silly as it sounds, the way I speak about this, we all feel this every now and then. Now, being a team player is a certain ability to understand that my partner, even if triggered, really cares about me. And for me, even when I am triggered, to remember that I really love my partner. And so the well-being and the health of the relationship takes priority over any individual and selfish needs and desires, right? It's basically the understanding that in a relationship, we do not have a win-lose situation, right? There's no such a thing as one person getting what they want at the expense of the other. Because if that happens, eventually both of us lose. So a team player understands that we're in it together. Now, I have a whole video about this, that specific skill, and I call it the most important relationship skill. So I just posted this video last week. Make sure to check it out to actually go deeper into what it means to be a team player and how you can develop this ability more in yourself as well. Then the next skill, skill number 5, is boundaries. So this is super important, okay? Because in intimate relationships, it's sort of like assumed that we don't really have boundaries anymore. It's like, think about it. You can walk into the bathroom when your partner is showering. It's like, you don't knock and ask. If you're sharing breakfast, you can just like grab some of their food, or you can take a sip of their coffee. You can wake them up in the middle of the night to have sex. There's like certain perks that come with having a long-term, especially relationship, that you just get to do those things. But here's the thing, assuming we have no more boundaries in the relationship really can create a lot of problems, because even if we are not aware there is a boundary, even if the boundary is not communicated, if it's there and it's crossed, it creates resentment. And resentment is #1 killer of intimate relationships. So don't assume anything. In fact, assume your partner and you still have boundaries. Having a boundaries means a few things. #1, being aware where the boundary is. #2 is communicating your boundary. And #3 is upholding the boundary. So what does it mean? I know where my boundaries are. I tell my partner, hey, this is not okay, or I need this. And if it's not met, I speak up. I remind them that, hey, that's my boundary and you crossed it, please don't do it again. And have some consequences for that. If your boundaries are being crossed over and over again, maybe that means the end of relationship. But if you don't uphold your boundaries, they will not be respected. So I want to give you a little bit of an example here, what I mean about boundaries, because I feel like people feel like it's kind of awkward in an intimate relationship. So let's say, that you're having breakfast with your partner, and you're in this teasing, playful mode, and you're just gonna go and you go over your partner and you just grab them and kiss them, right? Without checking in, without asking them anything, but you're feeling this beautiful, loving morning energy and you just wanted to go for it, right? Now, if you don't want to make it more serious, you don't necessarily have to ask them like, hey, is it okay if I kiss you, right? But here's what you can do. Every now and then, in your relationship, it's good to have check-in points and just kind of ask, was it okay that I did that? Did you like it? Would you want me to do it again? Do you not want me to do it again? So let's say you went for it and you gave your partner this big squish, hug and kiss and maybe made love, right? And then later the day, when you're in bed falling asleep, you can just check in with them. Like, hey, honey, I just wanted to ask you something. When I didn't check in with you this morning and I just went and grabbed you while you were eating breakfast, right? Was that okay? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Like, how did you feel about this? Simply asking about something. Because, see, when you ask in the moment, sometimes a person may feel awkward and, there's all of these emotions running. They may not even have access to their boundaries. They may not know what's okay and what's not okay. But if you give it some time and you ask them this question when you're relaxed and together and, touching each other, being very loving, right? So it's not threatening. They actually have the ability to check in and actually think like, you know what? Like, I totally don't mind when you just grab me, kiss me, and we have a quickie. But in the morning, I'm usually in a rush. So I would appreciate if we just didn't do it in the morning. Boom. A boundary is expressed. You know what's okay, what's not okay. And now you have clear understanding of how to move through the relationship. Now, boundaries take me to the next point, the 6th point on our list, and this is consent. It's very similar. In fact, boundaries and consent always come together. Consent is checking in. Hey, is your boundary here? Can I do it or can I not do that? So it's a very, very similar point. And like I said, we assume that in intimate relationships, there's no boundaries, so we don't have to ask for consent. But we really should. We really should. Just think for a moment, how does it feel when someone, comes to you and does something and like it actually doesn't feel good to you? Like you realize that, I would have preferred if they checked with me first, right? Notice all the times when someone didn't do that for you. So don't do the same to your partner. So here is how it actually looks in practical terms in a relationship, okay? So like I said, it's not about asking for consent every single time. Just like with boundaries, right? You don't have to check in every single time because you are in a relationship. Just every now and then, pause and actually ask to make sure that you know. Because the mistake that we make is assumption that we can read our partner. So we can ask for consent with words, but we can also ask with our body and our energy. And when you get close to someone, in fact, you really learn about them and you tune into them in a specific way. And oftentimes, yes, you can just sense, right, without using the words, whether they're a yes or a no to something. But the thing is, you don't always get it right. Sometimes we get it wrong. And so if we always assume that I can just magically read my partner's body and their energy, there is a very high probability that you will be stepping over their boundaries multiple times. Remember, that leads to resentment that kills most relationships. So like I said before of this example, around having breakfast and then one partner just going for it, it's the same here. You don't have to check in every single time, but just remember that your partner may have been open to something like last week, and today they may not, okay? So the main thing about consent is do not assume anything. Check in with your words, take some time to really tune into their body, watch their body language, watch their energy. Because sometimes we can be so fast, hey, because they've always liked it. So we don't take time to check in and feel that consent, right? And just go for something that may actually feel bad to our partner. Now, one thing I want to speak about when we talk about consent is often people think that consent kind of kills the moment. It's not very sexy. Well, here's the thing. If you speak to anyone who has mastered the skill of asking for consent, oh, darling, this is super sexy. Like, in fact, it opens the possibility for exploration at the level that you didn't have before. All the kink and BDSM and Tantric communities are based on honoring boundaries and asking for consent. The thing is, to ask for consent is to really be vulnerable. And we don't like being vulnerable. It's scary. So it's very easy to just say like, oh, asking for permission kills the moment, because that's our ways, our excuse to protect ourselves from being vulnerable, okay? Again, consent is super sexy once you master the ability to ask for it in an easy and natural way. Now, The last one, number 7, and it's sexual openness. Now look, sexuality is very important for intimate relationships. Without sexuality, you have friendship, right? What differentiates friendship from an intimate relationship is the aspect of sexuality. So it's very important, and it's also very important that you feel satisfied in your sex life. And that takes certain openness, right? Sexual openness. So what do we need to actually be satisfied sexually in a relationship? Well, first of all, it takes communication, right? So we gotta be able to communicate. What is it that we want? What is it that we need? What do we not like? What turns us on and what turns us off? It's also the ability to share about our fantasies and our deep desires. And no matter how scary they may feel or taboo they may feel, like being able to speak about it is so important. And that also means being able to receive the fantasy of your partner, right? Because very often when they say, for example, that they've always wanted to have group sex or a threesome, you can either judge them or feel threatened, right? So it's really important to be able to give your partner space just to open up about anything that they would love to do sexually. And especially do this without any judgment and without any blame, right? Now remember, sharing about your fantasies doesn't necessarily mean you have to go and explore this. And even if you choose to explore it, there's ways to design those experiences to make sure that they do not traumatize you and that they feel good, right? But that does take me to the last point about sexual openness, which is be open to experimenting and trying new things. Now, yes, some things can really cross your boundaries, may really be traumatizing, and it's like just a hard no. But in general, it's kind of a good rule to, you know what, if it's something new, I may not be into this, let me try it a few times. I may open up to this, I may actually like it, or I may just feel good enough to offer this because my partner likes this, right? But if you're not open to experimenting and trying new things, your sex life eventually will get really boring. And again, this is one of the main things that I do with my coaching clients. It's, you know, how to bring the spark back, how to bring excitement, and it is really about developing this whole skill of sexual openness in their relationship. So here you go, here you have these 7 relationship skills, and I know they're quite deep and they're quite complex, and it may take some time to really notice if the potential partner that you're considering has them or not. But something I feel it's also helpful, it's when you're aware of what those skills are, you can make it your intention and in your relationship to develop them. So if you feel like you're lacking some of them, right, you can speak to your partner and decide, hey, let's look into this, let's work on them. Because when you have these 7 pillars, your relationship is set for success for many, many years. Now, my love, once again, if you're interested in doing any of this work together, check the description under this video. There is a link to book a free consultation with me, and it's 1 hour of my time that I dedicate to you. And we have a chat, we just talk, we go deep into what's happening in your life and how I can assist you to create the most fulfilling and satisfying intimate life for yourself. And my love, if you like this video, give me a like, and I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. So these are my 7 top relationship skills. Have I missed anything? What else do you think is really, really important? So share this below. And if you would like more videos like this, then make sure to subscribe to this channel. Follow me on Instagram as well. I share practically every day something really inspirational. And my love, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your time. I do not take it lightly. And I'll be catching you soon with more videos.